It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Milwaukee Brewers. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Friday evening to you, wherever you may be. Dodgers struggling right now, losing last night, 6.5 behind San Francisco. They're playing Tampa Bay. And with 3 to go against Milwaukee, the Dodgers have won 7 and lost 15 since 2009 here at Dodger Stadium against the Brewers. When the Dodgers finish up with Milwaukee, here comes the league leading Washington Nationals. They're playing great ball. They've won 8 of the last 10. On the other side of the coin, the Dodgers are struggling. They've lost 6 of the last 10. The team average is 197, and they're averaging about 3 runs a game. As far as the Dodgers, they were disappointed that Kazmir couldn't win his 30th Major League team last night. He let the Brewers off the hook. But Kenley Jansen is in the wings. One more save for Kenley to give him 162. He will pass Eric Gagne for the most saves in franchise history. The pitching for tonight, Zach Davies on the mound, the right-hander with a record of 5-3. He began 0-3. He is now 5 wins and no losses in his last 8 starts. Julio Urias will be on the mound for the Dodgers. The 19-year-old is 0-2. He's faced 4 big league clubs: the Mets, the Cubs, Colorado, and San Francisco. Tomorrow night, it'll be Chase Anderson and Mike Bolsinger. Good ball game coming up and a whole lot more. So we'll be back right after this. Very pleasant Friday evening to you, wherever you may be, as Julio Urias jumps over the foul line, makes his way to the mound. We're getting ready for Game 2 of the 4-game series with Milwaukee tomorrow night, and then they'll wrap it up Sunday afternoon. Well, Urias still looking for his first win. He's faced 4 different teams, and 3 of the 4 are very tough: the Cubs, the Giants, and the Mets. And he also played briefly against Colorado. He'll be looking at a Milwaukee team that plays especially well here at Dodger Stadium. Jonathan Villar will open up at short, Aaron Hill at third, Ryan Braun in left, Jonathan LaCroix behind the plate. Chris Carter at first base, Hernan Perez in right, Scooter Gennett at second base, Keon Broxton the center fielder, Zach Davies the pitcher. On the mound for the Dodgers, Julio Urias. 19 years old, has already had 4 big league games, and this is number 5. Looking for his win, 0-2. The big thing for Urias is not so much the pitch count as the innings that he pitches, and the Dodgers keeping very much of an idea on that as he's set to go against Jonathan Villar, the shortstop, who not only had a great night last night by hitting a home run, he also was the lead man on a double steal. Though Villar takes a strike and the count 0-1. He was originally drafted by the Phillies. He's from the Dominican Republic. He had a couple of years, 3 of them with Houston, strictly a utility man. Strike 1 pitch is taken low, 1-1. In his 3 years with Houston, he had about 580 at-bats. Now all of a sudden, he's an all-star candidate in the National League. Beautiful evening, 75 degrees. Urias back with a pitch that dips in nicely for a strike, and the count 1-2. Not a breath of air, not a breeze, just a lovely evening. Urias looks in to get a sign. Julio ready, and his 1-2 pitch high and tight. 2 balls and 2 strikes. As far as Jonathan Villar is concerned, he never did make it to the Phillies. He came up to the Astros back in 2013. 2-2 pitch on the way is swung on and fouled away. Villar, naturally a right-handed batter, but he took up switch hitting, and he said in his own words, it took him 4 to 5 years before he felt comfortable hitting from the left side. One thing he does when he bats left-handed, he chokes up a little bit, but his power is right-handed. 2-2 pitch on the way is swung on and fouled back. He has a half a dozen home runs, and even though his power is from the right side, of his 6 home runs, 4 have been batting left-handed. So Jonathan back in, switch hitter, only 25 years old. The 2-2 pitch on the way fouled off, so he's still there. And for Urias now 7 pitches. 7 pitches reminds us that for Urias, he wears number 7, and that's a single number for a pitcher. You don't usually see that, although a lot of pretty famous Dodgers wore number 7. 2-2 pitch on the way, and Villar fouls that one away. I remember the Dodger manager many years ago, Charlie Dressen, wore number 7. Steve Yeager, and you certainly remember Steve, he wore number 7. And there have been quite a few, but we don't want to interrupt with the pitching. But number 7, that's a pretty good number. 2-2 pitch on the way. Fast one, a sinker, swung on and missed, probably the slider, and down goes Villar. So we have 1 out on the strikeout. We'll check the Dodgers with the leather. Gonzalez and Utley, Seager and Turner, and the outfield of Thompson, Peterson, and Venable. Grandal behind the plate, and Urias on the mound. So Urias has picked up some strikeouts. In fact, in his last couple of games, he's racked them up. He's had 7 strikeouts against the Giants and Colorado. So the first pitch in for a strike, 0-1. Up here, and it's his way, but you have to really watch Mike Everett, because what Everett does when he calls a strike, his right hand almost points towards the hitter, and up here it's hard to see. The next pitch is outside. 1 ball and 1 strike. So Julio, who has tonight and maybe another start And then, of course, we'll see about Ryu. Here's the 1-1 pitch on the way, and that's low, ball 2, 2-1. Aaron Hill made a dazzling play at third base last night. We always thought of Aaron as a second baseman, but he made a great play on the ball hit by Adrian Gonzalez in the 6th inning. He also had a big night with the bat. He had a walk, a single, and a home run, scored twice. The 2-1 pitch, big breaking ball that hits home plate. Of course, that's the thing Branch Rickey often taught young pitchers. When you're trying to throw a strike, and let's say you have a 1-ball, 1-strike count, try to hit home plate. Well, he did, but the wrong count. Now it's 3-1. Left-hander ready. Julio back. Fastball hit late and foul. So from the big slow curveball, he gets a 93-mile-an-hour fastball. 3-2 the count to the veteran Aaron Hill. Waiting on deck, Ryan Braun. Hill did something most of the great players never did. He had 2 cycles within a 2-week period. 3-2 pitch on the way. Swung on ground ball to Seager. He is up with it and makes the play. 2 down in the first inning, and Ryan Braun coming up. By the way, more pressure put on top of the Dodgers. When the game began, the Dodgers were 6.5 games behind the Giants. Well, Dave Roberts will learn soon. The Giants beat the Rays 5-1. So for the moment now, the Dodgers are 7 games behind the Giants. Samardzija went all the way. He's now 8-4. The Giants have won 26 of the last 34. So for the Dodgers, they're going to have to go to the whip a little bit. And here's Braun. Fastball is fouled back to the screen, and the count 0-1. Braun, even though he's hitting 300, has been in quite a slump. Last night, he struck out with runners at second and third. He did walk, and he had an infield single, but that was not a Ryan Braun night. Hitting 200 for over 3 weeks, and he takes off the plate. 1 ball and 1 strike. On the road trip, he's just 2 for 13, a 154 batting average. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way, swung on, ground ball into the hole and through into right field for a base hit. So Braun goes the other way, and that'll bring up LaCroix. So Ryan Braun singles to right with 2 down. Jonathan LaCroix in the first inning last night came so near and yet so far. He came up with runners at first and second, hit one down the left field line. It just missed hitting the foul pole, and it was on the foul side. So he had to come back, try it again, and don't you know, he popped up. LaCroix with a 6-game hitting streak. On this road trip, he's hitting a little over 400. So the right-hand hitting catcher with Braun at first. Braun, by the way, has joined the club. He's stolen 5, and they run on left-handers. Here comes the pitch from Urias. Good overhand breaking ball for a strike, and the count 0-1. LaCroix looking down to Ed Cedar, the third base coach. Old friend Craig Counsell still looks like he should be playing instead of being the manager of the ball club. 0-1 the count to LaCroix. Urias again looking over at Braun and decides to go over there. Close play, and he just did get back. As far as this club is concerned, we're talking about Milwaukee. They run. They run at any time, and they run against left-handers and right-handers. I mean, they have nothing to lose. 14.5 games behind Chicago, and everybody runs. They have 58 stolen bases. So Braun, who has stolen 5 out of 7, takes his lead. Urias looks over. Now he comes to the plate. Stayed up with a fastball, and the count 1-1. Julio, who wears glasses, waiting now for LaCroix to get back in. Hard to believe, Milwaukee since 2009 has won 15 of 22 here at Dodger Stadium. 1-1 pitch on the way, and that's a little low in the dirt. Bounce back up into Grandal's mitt, and the count 2-1. Braun, usually if he's going to steal a base, does it on the first pitch. He's 4 out of 5. Right now the count's gone to 2-1, so maybe they're going to play hit and run. Braun watching. Julio comes into a crouch on the mound, set, now straightens up, comes to the plate, off speed, and it's hit foul out of play. 2 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 out. So the Brewers come to play, they come to run, and they have enough power to have 72. The problem is their staff has given up 87. So 2-2 as Braun takes a very cautious lead. I don't think he's been able to read Urias, not yet. Julio set, looks at him, now to the plate, swung on, banged into left center for a base hit. Over to cut it off, and smothering it with his body is Thompson. Going to third is Braun on the long single to left center field. Thompson, had he not smothered that ball with a sliding effort, why Braun with 2 out would have scored. Though a big play by Trayce Thompson in left center field. So Braun, who was to third, had to hold on a long single, and the batter now is Chris Carter. Carter, kind of a feast or famine hitter. He has a lot of home runs, 18. He also has 43 runs batted in. However, he also has struck out, and I mean, here we are, the 17th of June. He has struck out 85 times. So the big guy, first baseman, first and third, 2 out. They're going to have to keep an eye on LaCroix, even though he is a catcher. He's another member of this track team. LaCroix, by the way, 2 for 2 in stolen bases. Carter not only has a lot of strikeouts and 18 home runs, he is also grounded into 10 double plays. Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way. Swung on, lifted, playable to right field. Venable comes up wearing Dave Roberts' old glove and makes the catch. We talked about that last night. We might mention it again tonight. No runs, 2 hits, 2 left. At the end of half an inning, no score. Ball game as they did last night. Milwaukee kicked up their heels in the first inning and came up empty. Here's the Dodger lineup. You have Chase Utley leading off at second base, Corey Seager at short, Justin Turner at third, and Adrian Gonzalez at first. Trayce Thompson in left, Jock Peterson in center, Yasmani Grandal the catcher, Will Venable in right, and the pitcher on the mound, Zach Ryan Davies. He's about 6 feet tall, and there's a lot of talk about his weight. I have read that he's 160. I have read that he's 155. I also read that he's 150, somewhere between 150 and 160. But he is a long drink of water as he's ready to work now to Chase Utley. Zach's first pitch is a fastball up and away, ball one. And by the way, his fastball rarely gets to 90. What he does have is a great changeup. In fact, he started to learn to throw the changeup in junior high school. Utley, meanwhile, a ground ball to Carter. Chris takes it to the bag, and just like that, one away. Take a look now at Milwaukee, and you have Carter and Jeanette on the right side. Villar and Hill on the left. Braun, Broxton, and Perez in the outfield, and LaCroix handling Davis. Here is Corey Seager. My friend John Lowe, way down in Texas, sent me an interesting note. Corey and his brother both batted with 2 out in the 9th inning last night. Here's the first pitch. Corey takes low, ball 1. Kyle Seager homered for Seattle with 2 out in the top of the 9th in Tampa Bay, and that increased the lead from 5-4 to 6-4, which was the final score. Corey Seager struck out with the bases loaded for the last out last night. Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way, in for a strike, and the count 1-1. Another note, on a night when Trace Thompson hit a 3-run home run, his brother didn't hit enough threes. Clay went 3 for 10 on 3-point shots last night. Seager trying to hold up, can't do it, and the count 1-2. Let's talk a little bit about the young right-hander. Really, his season turned around on the 1st of May. A changeup is swung on and missed, sinker down and away, and we have 2 out. Can you imagine? Your junior high school coach tells you to start work on your changeup, and it's now the pitch that has him in the big league. He pitched well at home earlier, 4-2, with a good earned run average of 2.8, and he was killed on the road. In 3 starts on the road, his ERA was about 8. However, since May 1, he's become a much better pitcher. We'll test him now with Justin Turner. Slender right-hander who's always been told he's not big enough to pitch, comes to the plate, and a high fly ball to deep left field. No doubt about it. She's gone. Justin Turner walks up and hits the first pitch into the seats, and the Dodgers are on the board. By the way, for Davies, that is the 9th home run that he has allowed. And for Justin Turner, his 7th home run, 25 runs batted in. So the Dodgers jump out in front. They could not do that at any time last night. They were down 3-0. They were down 6-3. And each time got off the floor to tie it up, only to lose 8-6. So the home run by Turner, and here's Adrian Gonzalez loading up the right side. He takes way off the plate, ball 1. With no one on base going into this game, the opposition was hitting 161, and when Turner finished, there was still nobody on base. The 1-0 pitch is a ground ball into left field, actually left center. Racing over is Braun and Broxton. Broxton comes up with it, and Adrian holds up with a single. So for Zach Davies, he got Utley, he struck out Seager, and then a home run to Turner, and Gonzalez a base hit. Both Turner and Gonzalez not wasting any time going after the first pitch. So here now is Trace Thompson. He already made a fine play, smothering that base hit in left center, holding LaCroix to a single, and more importantly, holding Braun to third. 1-0 Dodgers, first inning. Davies set at the belt. Right-hander whips a fastball at 90. That's about as hard as he can throw. I don't think he's recorded as more than 90, and most of the time around 89. Another note on him, he allows hits on the first 2 pitches in the count. Well, that shows tonight. The 1-0 pitch on the way taken, change, 2-0 the count. Turner banged one out. Gonzalez didn't waste any time either. The middle of the lineup, and you've already had number 3 and 4 have done the damage. During the year, the 3, 4, and 5 hitters are batting .333 against him. So no surprise. 2-0 pitch on the way. Fastball, and that's low. Though he's behind 3-0. Trayce Thompson with Joc Pederson waiting on deck. Davies, in breaking down his record, is also 2-0 in the game following a Brewer win. So they're hoping he can do that again tonight. 3-0 pitch on the way, in for a strike at the knees. Fastball, 3-1 the count. The other note with Pederson waiting, if the first 2 pitches are not put in play, the batting average against him is .166. So the 3-1 pitch coming up. Davies delivers, and that's low, ball 4. So he gives up a home run to Turner, a single to Gonzalez, a walk to Thompson, and the batter now, Joc Pederson. Joc Pederson hitting .234 for the week, hitting .320. He has 11 home runs, 30 runs batted in. Up there now, 2 on, 2 out, 1-0 Dodgers in the first inning. All right, Davies in some trouble with 2 out. Pederson checks in. Gonzalez away from second. Tough man to score on a base hit. And Thompson at first. First pitch now to Joc is taken for a strike, and the count 0-1. The dangerous count for Davies has been 1 ball and no strikes. Opposing hitters with that count, they're hitting .619 against him. Though once he falls behind, he's in trouble. 0-1 the count to Joc Pederson. Back with a pitch down and away, and a 1 ball 1 strike count. Kind of a cutter at 88. Davies trying to get out of a spot of trouble here. 1 ball 1 strike, 2 out. Right-hander ready. Doesn't really look at the runners. Comes back with a pitch that's popped up. Back a third down the line. Aaron Hill going out and makes the catch for the out. So Pederson pops it up. The Dodgers, however, get a run and lead 2. Justin Turner just walked up and jumped all over a belt-high fastball. Hit it a good halfway, almost 3/4 into the seats and left, and the Dodgers lead 1-0. thanks to Justin Turner's home run. So when they match muscle, the Brewers have hit 72. The Dodgers have hit 74. But the big difference is the pitching staff. The Brewers have allowed 88 and the Dodgers 63. Hernan Perez will start it off. Young fella from Aragua in Venezuela. Right-hand batter. Signed with the Tigers about 9 years ago. Grounds one foul right into the Dodger dugout. And the count 0-1. Perez won a big game for Max Scherzer. It's kind of a complicated play. Runners at second and third and 1 out. Omar Infante hit a line drive to Ian Kinsler, who made the easy catch, and he threw to second. Broken bat, line drive down the line, and Perez on his way to second base, and he's in there standing with a double. So the Brewers, a very good offensive team, come right back with a leadoff double. Anyway, what Perez did, he was sitting in the dugout, and he spotted the fact that the runner at third failed to tag up. Came in when the throw was wild, and Perez saved the game while sitting in the dugout. And Max Scherzer, who got the win, said, "I'll buy him anything." So Perez, a double now, shattering his bat. That's the third hit against Julio. And the batter now, Scooter Gennett. 1-0 Dodgers, top of the second inning. Gennett batting left-handed. Urias waiting now. Gennett in and out of the box. Scooter hitting .256, but like all the Brewers, plays better here at Dodger Stadium. He's hitting .300 here, and he takes in the dirt. Ball one. 1 ball and no strikes. Gennett last night struck out twice, flied to right, grounded out. 0 for 4. 1-0 Dodgers, but nobody out. Tying run at second base. Gennett waiting. Urias, a look back now to the plate, way off and low. 2 balls and no strikes. Urias made 25 pitches in the first inning. Last night, Scott Kazmir made 27. 2-0 the count. 1-0 Dodgers. Turner's home run. Urias very deliberate. 2-0 slow curveball in for a strike. That's a page right out of Clayton Kershaw. That big rainbow curve. 2-1 the count. Scooter Gennett. His real name is Ryan Joseph, but everybody calls him Scooter. 2-1 pitch. Fouled away. Off speed. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Gennett, hitting 7th in the lineup. Keon Broxton waiting on deck. He had a rough night last night. Young center fielder made 2 errors in 1 inning. 2-2. Brewers are okay at home. They're 2 games above .500, the same as the Dodgers, but they've gotten killed on the road. The Dodgers are .500 on the road. The Brewers are 7 games under .500. 2 balls and 2 strikes the count. 1-0 Dodgers. Home run by Justin Turner. 2-2 pitch on the way. Bad ball. Did he swing? He tried to hold up and he couldn't do it. So Gennett chasing a bad ball, leaving a runner at second with 1 out, and Broxton coming up. Take a look about young Julio. His first 2 starts, very erratic, an ERA of 9. He struck out a few, but he walked a bunch, and the opposition hit at .371. However, in the last 2 starts, a very respectable 2.8 ERA, 14 strikeouts and only 2 walks. So he picks up his second strikeout, and with 1 out, here's Keon Broxton. Right-hand batter swings, fouls it away, and the count 0-1. Broxton struggling. One reason, not making contact. He has struck out 27 times in his 50 at bats. So a leadoff double by Perez. 1 out later, he is still there, and Broxton now trying to pick him up. Keon, Keon, from Lakeland, Florida. Strike 1 pitch. Instead, Urias a full turn on the mound. Keon was originally drafted in the 3rd round by the Diamondbacks back in 2009. 0-1 the count. He's terrific on a skateboard. And he hits a chopper up the middle. Utley backhands behind the bag, throws and gets him. Great play by Chase Utley to prevent the run. That looked like a sure base hit, especially with Broxton's speed, and yet Utley got him. So Utley on a high hopper behind the bag, and then the off-balance throw still beat Broxton. Tying run moves to 3rd. So in 2 innings, Milwaukee has had a runner at 3rd. In the 1st inning, they left him, and we'll see about Davies now, and he takes a strike. 0-1. Davey has had 20 at bats, and he does have 2 hits. 1 run batted in. He's a good bunter for a sacrifice. Strike 1 pitch on the way, and that's in there. And the count 0-2. So the tying run was left at 3rd when Carter flied out, and the tying run at 3rd, 2 down, and the strike 2 pitch coming up. A bluff down the line by Perez, and the pitch foul back. With a 19-year-old pitcher, the Brewers thinking perhaps running down the line like that with Turner pretty far off the bag might draw Urias into a balk. Left-hander does have a wild pitch. Strike 2 pitch on the way. Fastball gets him, and that's that. That fastball, by the way, at 95. So 3 strikeouts for Urias. A big play by Chase Utley, and at the end into the bottom, it'll be Grandal, Venable, and Urias in that order against the slender right-hander. Davies has concluded his warm-ups, and here comes Grandal. Urias has made only 30 pitches in 2 innings. Davies up on top now, and Grandal hitting 186, batting left-handed, and checks in at the plate. Giants won their ball game. Fastball is low, ball one. 1-0 the count. Next pitch to Grandal, down, and he goes after it, doesn't get it. 1 ball and 1 strike. Young Davies made 17 pitches in the first inning. 1-1 pitch, and Grandal doesn't get it, and the count 1-2. Aaron Hill, who had been on the left side of the infield, now with 2 strikes, takes over at second base, and Villar goes back to the shortstop post. The 1-2 pitch on the way, swung on, hit in the air to right field. It's a play, and Perez leaps up and makes the catch right at the scoreboard. So Grandal hits it pretty hard. Hernan Perez making a nice play in right field, and we have 1 down.
25, Will Venable.
Will Venable coming up. We'll take another look at that nice leaping catch by Perez. We told the story last night. One more time, because we don't imagine Venable is going to be playing that much. 0 for 3 this year. Will and the manager Dave Roberts were teammates in San Diego. Pitch in for a strike. Venable made 5 errors, I think, in 9 games, and he blamed his glove. Though he came in talking to Dave, the veteran outfielder. Pitch inside. And Venable said, "Can I use your glove?" And Roberts said, "Yeah, I've been using it since 2005. It is really a relic. It's been sewn and sewn and sewn again." A ground ball knocked down by Carter, feeds his pitcher coming over, and that'll do it for Venable, and we have 2 down. Anyway, that glove, which was broken in 2005, and we show to those of you watching on television, that's the old Dave Roberts glove. Venable will wear it as long as he plays, and of course right now it's ironic. He's playing for the Dodgers using the manager's old glove. Okay, 2 down, and here's Julio. 1-0 favor of the Dodgers, even though they've already been out hit. And the first pitch in for a strike, 0-1. Urias showing bunt. Infield back to a normal depth. Julio bats left-handed. Strike 1 pitch. He takes low and away. 1 ball, 1 strike. When Justin Turner hit a home run in the first inning, that really almost completes the story. You know, back on May the 10th, the Dodgers were 29th in the majors in home runs and next to last in the National League, too. Since May the 11th, as Urias swings and misses, the team is 2nd in the National League in home runs. Washington has 50. Thanks to Turner, the Dodgers have 49. And at the end of 2, 1-0 Dodgers. 2-0 in favor of the Dodgers on a beautiful evening. Villar, Hill, and Braun in that order. Julio Urias has made 38 pitches in the first 2 innings, 25 in the first inning. The Brewers have had a runner at third twice and left him. The Villar hitting .300, 6 home runs, 28 runs batted in. Justin Turner on the edge of the grass thinking bunt. First pitch swung on and popped up on the right side. Gonzalez and Utley, it will be whom? Utley. They were shoulder to shoulder, 2 veterans, neither one giving in to the other.
Number 9, Aaron Hill.
So 1 away on the pop up, and the batter now Aaron Hill. The Brewers came into the game 5 games under 500 and 14.5 games behind the Cubs. Here's Aaron Hill batting .264. They load up the left side, and he takes ball 1. Dodgers lead 1-0. First inning home run by Justin Turner. 1-0 pitch on the way. Aaron Hill has a look. It's outside. 2-0 the count. Aaron Hill in his 63rd game, so he's only missed 4. 2 for 4 last night and hitting .333 on the road trip, and he has to count his way now. 3 balls and no strikes. Last year Hill couldn't do much at all. He has Braun hitting behind him. 3-0 pitch. Aaron takes in the dirt for ball 4. Last year Hill hit .171 against the Dodgers, so he's trying to make up for that. So Aaron at first. So that would be 4 base runners for Milwaukee. 2 of them reach third. And here comes Braun, who singled to right field in the first inning. Anytime you read or hear about how Ryan Braun might very well be traded, you have to remember any ball club that's even thinking of getting him has to also remember the contract that he has. I mean, he is worth a lot of money. Ryan, with his power, is also a good bunter, so they have to watch that. And the first pitch taken for a strike, and the count 0-1. Ryan, 6'2", 205-pounder, 33 years old. Hill at first, 1 out. Strike 1 pitch on the way, swung on and fouled away, and the count 0-2. Braun will steal a base, but as we mentioned last night, even though he's known for hitting a lot of home runs, he is basically a ground ball hitter. He hits ground balls a little more than 2 for every 1 fly ball. He's also grounded into 9 double plays. No balls and 2 strikes the count. Urias ready, left-handed, delivers low. 1 ball, 2 strikes. The Ryan Braun trying to keep things going. Brewers getting the man on. They had 2 base hits in the first inning. They had a leadoff double in the second and a 1-out walk here in the third. 1-2 the count. The pitch to Ryan Braun, breaking ball low. 2 balls and 2 strikes. And looking at Braun, he has hit as many as 41 home runs, 33, 37, 34. So he packs a lot of power. He was the rookie of the year back in 2007. Line drive base hit down the right field line. On his way to third is Hill. The throw back to the infield. So again, here come the Brewers. They had first and third in the first inning with 2 out. They left a runner at third in the second inning, and they have runners at first and third here in the third. So Braun, twice going the other way, has single to right. Hill, who runs well, takes the extra base. And the batter will be Jonathan Lucroy. Lucroy single to left field in the first inning. That was the ball hit in left center. Trayce Thompson made a body smothering play on the ground ball out there, held it to a single and prevented Braun from scoring. Now for Braun, as we mentioned earlier, if he's going to steal, he usually does it on the first pitch. Urias looks over at him, now comes to the plate, off speed, in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Dodgers lead 1-0. They have 2 hits. The Brewers have not scored. They have 4 hits. Turner hit the home run to give the Dodgers the lead. Urias straightens up, looks over at Braun, and decides he goes over there, and he's picked him off. Now the run by Gonzalez to Seager, and holding at third has to be Hill. Well, we had the feeling that Braun was going to try to steal, and he is hung out to dry on that pickoff play from Urias to first baseman Adrian Gonzalez. So a huge out. He was leaning, he is way off the bag, and Seager just took the toss and tagged him, and then made sure that Hill was holding at third. So it could very well be in the first 3 innings the Brewers leave a man at third each of the 3 innings and trail 1-0. So Urias fooled the veteran Ryan Braun. Strike 1 pitch, and Lucroy takes off the plate. Milwaukee has stolen 22 and been caught 7 times now that Ryan Braun was picked off against left-handers. Yeah, they run. Counsell has them running, but I'm sure he's upset over Braun. Slow curveball, but it stays up. 2-1 for Urias. He's up to 51 pitches now. Julio make a big play. Now the 2-1 pitch. Lucroy waiting. Hill down the line from third, and it's fouled away. So 2 balls, 2 strikes, and 2 out. Jonathan Lucroy has been a very tough hitter with runners in scoring position and 2 out. Well, he's got run at third right now. He's hitting .375 during the year in this spot. 2-2 to Jonathan Lucroy. Urias has to be very careful. Chris Carter is on deck. Now the 2-2 pitch on the way, swung on and missed. High fastball, maybe even out of the zone. So a nice bit of pitching. First, Julio picks off a runner, strikes out a good hitter, and for the 3rd inning in a row, Milwaukee leaves a man at third and trail 1-0. 2,000 fans in attendance and receive Dodger boxers, compliments of Chef Marito seasonings. After the game, you can play catch on the field, and for tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotion. Third inning, Chase Utley saved a run, making an excellent play on a ball hit up the middle. With the bat grounded out in the first inning, so he's 0 for 1. First pitch to Chase, high and away, ball 1. 1 run, 2 hits for the Dodgers. No runs, 4 hits by a Milwaukee team really doing the young right-hander a disservice by not coming up with a run. The 1-0 pitch taken for a strike, and the count's 1-1. Justin Turner, who accounted for the run with his home run, waiting, sitting on a box in the Dodger dugout, hitting third in the inning. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way, pulled into right field, base hit. Over to get the ball as Perez comes up with it, holding Utley to a leadoff single. So Utley 1 for 2 for the Dodgers, hit number 3. And here's Corey Seager, who struck out in the first inning. So Utley, line drive single to right. Dodgers in business. Last night, Seager in his last 2 at-bats struck out. So striking out in the first inning, he has now struck out 3 consecutive at-bats. Right-hander Davies comes with the first pitch, a little low. Ball 1, 1-0. Davies, among other things, he was on the United States team for the All-Star Futures game, signed by Baltimore. The Brewers got him, sending Gerardo Parra to Baltimore. Ground ball hard to second, the feed for 1. They will turn it for 2. So Seager bangs into a double play, and just like that, 2 out. 4-6-3.
Justin Turner.
Dodgers in a struggle facing the Central Division. This is the 12th game in that division, and the Dodgers are 6-5. Justin Turner, in his first 39 games, hit 1 home run. In his last 26, counting tonight, he has hit 6 more. First pitch to Justin, and that's in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Giants won 5-1. Samardzija all the way to get the victory. So the Dodgers, for the moment, are 7 games behind San Francisco. Dodgers win, it would revert to 6.5. Should the Dodgers lose, it would go to 7.5. Tomorrow night, Chase Anderson and Mike Bolsinger. The next pitch is popped up right side down the line. Carter trying to get some help from Gennett and makes the catch. Scooter did just that. Scoots into right field and makes a dazzling defensive play. And the Dodgers go down. Leadoff single, double play, and a dazzling play by Scooter Gennett. First he had to look to see where the right fielder was. Lunged, fell, and held onto the ball. Still 1-0 Dodgers. Sportsnet LA is brought to you by the Dodge Challenger. Test drive one at your local Dodge dealer today. And by Jack in the Box. It's back. The Portobello Mushroom Buttery Jack. Taste it before it's gone at Jack in the Box. A look back in time. Lou Johnson, Don Drysdale, Wes Parker. Now for the moment, and it'll be Chris Carter, Hernan Perez, and Scooter Gennett. Fastball on the outside corner for a strike. 0-1. Carter has almost as many home runs as he has singles. 18 home runs, 21 singles, and 15 doubles. Next one misses, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike. Carter last night had a double and a home run. The big Chris trying to get something started. Still 1-0 Dodgers. Foul back. Carter, a big man and playing a big man's position, first base. He stands 6'4". He's 245 pounds, and he has 127 career home runs. He also now has 86 strikeouts. So 1 away, and Hernan Perez coming up. 5 strikeouts for Julio Urias. Dodgers lead 1-0. Hernan Perez doubled into the left field corner and was left at third. In the first 3 innings, trailing 1-0, Milwaukee has left a runner at third in each of the 3 innings. And Perez takes a strike. So a frustrated Craig Counsell, I'm sure. Down and away. 1 ball and 1 strike. Big curveball drops in nicely. 1-2. Boy, what a beautiful sky. I don't know if the sky is sending a message that it's going to be hot, but boy, it is gorgeous. Streaks of pink. Foul ball, still 1-2. When you sit in this ballpark looking out at the mountains, the park itself, and the beautiful sky, you can certainly understand why people live here despite all the bad things about it, like traffic. Here's the 1-2 pitch. Fastball away. 2-2 to Perez. Scooter Gennett, who made that wonderful play on the ball hit by Turner, on deck. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Another fastball. Julio a little annoyed. Backs off to calm down a little. 3-2. Because that's a good thing to do. If you're a big league pitcher and you get a little annoyed, back off. Gather yourself, as they say. And the slow curveball freezes him. Strike 3. 6 strikeouts and 3 in a row now for Julio. And he's shaking his head, still thinking about the previous pitch, the fastball. Two out in the 4th. Scooter Gennett, he struck out in the 2nd inning. Certainly made a wonderful play on that ball hit by Turner. Check swing for ball 1. Scooter's real name is Ryan Joseph. He's from Cincinnati, Ohio. Brewers drafted him out of high school. Fouled away. Gennett is not the fella who's going to hit a little home run every now and then. He did hit 9 a couple of years ago, but they've shut him down pretty much ever since. Two and 1. 2 down, bases empty. We're in the 4th inning. Dodgers lead 1-0. First inning home run by Justin Turner. 2-1. Curveball, but up. Ball 3. As you can see, a troublesome first inning, but settling down ever since. Breaking ball hit through into left field. So on a 3-1 pitch away, Jeanette goes the other way with it. Singles to left. And the batter will be Keon Broxton.
Keon Broxton.
Brewers with at least 1 hit now have 5, but nothing to show for it. Broxton grounded out in the second inning. Keon 0 for 1. Pretty tough to play in a regular lineup, hitting 137. And ball 1. However, they want to take a look at him. I'm sure Milwaukee management knows they are not about to catch Washington. So here you got a 6'3", 190-pounder. Urias, after counsel from Grandal. 1 ball and no strike to Keon Darrell Broxton. Broxton had 7 at-bats with the Pirates. He's had 200, no, not that many. He's had 50 at-bats so far. Takes a strike. He was with the Pirates last year for 7 games, had 2 at-bats and went 0 for 2. Disappeared back down into the minors, and here he is trying to stay up with Milwaukee. 1-1 with Jeanette at first, and foul back again. 1-2. Keon, a fine athlete. He had a commitment. He was going to play wide receiver at Florida Atlantic out of high school. Decided instead to play college baseball at Santa Fe. That's where you learned about the game, and as he said, learned about myself. Here's the 1-2 pitch. Instead, a good move to first. Nothing like picking a man off. You have a ball club that loves to run with Milwaukee, and a great pickoff by Urias to nail Braun. And that would, you think, would calm him down a little bit. 1-2. Curveball, and that'll do it. Broxton grinds out, and down he goes swinging. So for Urias, he strikes out the side. He has 7 strikeouts and leads 1-0. Nothing on a first inning home run by Justin Turner. Now in the fourth, it'll be Adrian Gonzalez, followed by Trace Thompson, and then Jock Peterson against young, slender, tattooed right-hander by the name of Zach Davies. Tell you about the tattoo in a moment. That's in for a strike, and the count 0-1. You have to look close, and that might be it, all right. It's a tattoo of the Space Needle in Seattle. 1-1. You might say, why would you have the Space Needle tattooed on your arm? And like Reb Tebia in the Fiddler on the Roof, I don't know. 1-1. Good fastball on the outside corner at 90. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Gonzalez with the shift on, rolled one in through the infield into left center for a base hit. Was left at second. Dodgers lead 1-0 in the fourth. That got away. They'll have to retrieve the ball. 2-2 the count. We'll repeat, the Giants defeated Tampa Bay. Jeff Samardzija going all the way to his record 8-4. He beat Chris Archer, whose record is now 4-9. Check. It's going to cost him a bum check. You can't cash it here. And down goes Gonzalez.
Number 21.
Well, Adrian
Thompson.
tried to hold up, couldn't do it. 3 strikeouts for Davies. And the batter, Trace Thompson. Here's the pitch. It was definitely out of the strike zone. However, called a swing as you see that bat passing over the plate. 1 away. 3 strikeouts for the slender right-hander. There have been some fellas who are not, most of the major league pitchers are a good 6'3". Somebody is growling over in the Dodger dugout. Adrian Gonzalez has walked to the far end and disappeared. And somebody else is still on, Mike Everett. Dave Roberts, Bob Guerin. The point is if to say to Everett, go back to umpiring, we're quiet. Gonzalez, the injured person, has left the dugout. 0-1. Chopper to the hole, backhanded by Villar. Plenty of time and throws him out. Close play. Thompson runs so well with those long, graceful strides. Looks like he's just jogging and he eats it up. But Villar got him. 2 down. So with 2 out, Jock Peterson coming up. 4-game series with Milwaukee. And again, remember, since 2009, they've won 15 of 22 here at Dodger Stadium. Tomorrow night, Chase Anderson and Mike Bolsinger. The heavy lifting will be Sunday. That's a strike. 0-1. Sunday, Matt Garza and Kenta Maeda. And they say Sunday is going to be a very warm day. 0-1. 1 ball, 1 strike. One and 2. Just wondering, you say Matt Garza, you're probably thinking Latin America, Mexico. He's from Selma, California. I don't know if it gets up to 100 degrees in Japan or not, but Maeda will be pitching in it Sunday. 1 ball, 2 strikes. Just did get a little of that. That was a perfectly executed change and a 1 ball, 2 strikes. Peterson popped up to the third baseman Aaron Hill in the first inning. And that's cuffed foul at Fastball at 91. Originally signed by Baltimore, they gave Davies a bonus of a little more than $500,000 to keep him from going to Arizona State. He was an all-state pitcher at Mesquite High in Gilbert, Arizona. 1-2. When he was with Baltimore, here's a quote from the manager, Buck Showalter. If you get over what he physically looks like, when he walks out there, he looks like the bat boy. He's probably 6 feet tall, and I'm stretching it, and 160 pounds soaking wet, maybe. But he can pitch. Pop fly, they're going to be Hill or Villar, and it's going to be the shortstop, and that's that. So Davies does another nice job, sets the Dodgers down in order. Boy, it's tough to concentrate on the game when you have scenery like that. And at the end of 4, 1-0 Dodgers. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Toyota's Summer Drive Sales event is going on now, where you can save big on the all-new Prius. Another look back. Lou Johnson waiting at home plate for Ron Fairly to run out his home run. Meanwhile, interesting numbers working for Urias. In his last 3 starts, he's had 1 walk and 7 strikeouts, 1 walk and 7 strikeouts, and 1 walk and 7 strikeouts. Tonight, he has 1 walk and 7 strikeouts. So we'll see what he does as he moves along. Davies, Villar, and then Hill. 1-0 Dodgers, 5th inning, and a strike. Davies struck out in the 2nd inning. Urias prevented Milwaukee from leaving another man at third by striking out the side in the 4th inning, leaving Jeanette at first. Foul ball. 0-2 the count. One run, 3 hits for the Dodgers, no runs, 5 hits, bouncer. And we have 1 down in the 5th inning. Say Monday, come see 2 all-star pitchers. Can you believe it? It's going to be Steven Strasburg and Clayton Kershaw. And if you're one of the first 40,000 in attendance, you'll receive a Dodger Cooler backpack, courtesy of your SoCal Honda dealers. So for tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Kershaw, who was put in to run at second base last night and fortunately was not called upon to run, will be on the mound against Strasburg. Villar struck out, popped up 0 for 2. Good ball player, hitting .299. On deck, Ryan Braun. That's a strike. So Urias really staying within the strike zone. 0-2 the count. 78 pitches, and he has struck out 7, walking 1. Breaking ball in the dirt. 1-2. Villar followed by Hill and then Braun. 1 out, 5th inning, 1-0 Dodgers. Home run by Justin Turner in the 1st inning. Fastball, little chopper back to the box. Two down, and Aaron Hill coming up.
Third baseman Aaron Hill.
Urias has made 80 pitches right now, and you might wonder how long on a pitch count has he gone. Highest number 86, and he's done that back to back against Colorado and against San Francisco. Foul ball. He had 81 pitches against the Mets, 79 against Chicago. Before the ball game, they were asking Dave Roberts, how many pitches will the young man be allowed to make? He said right around 99 to 100. In fact, Dave said he really had command and located the fastball last time out. Depends on the stretch. We expect they'll do that again. Two and one. No runs, 5 hits for Milwaukee. That's in there for a strike. Left side loaded up. Now with 2 strikes, Utley now goes the other way. He's back to where he normally is. Two and two. And that will do it for Hill. That's 8 strikeouts for Urias. He has done it with really a minimum number of pitches after the 1st inning. And he walks off still leading 1-0. Dodgers leading 1-0. for Julio Urias. He has made 85 pitches. He's the pitcher of record. He's leading 1-0. He is talking now Kenta Maeda. The glimpse of the Dodger future right there. Urias and Maeda. Meanwhile, at the plate, Corey Seager, and ball 1. Zach Davis doing a very good job. He gave up the home run, but that's all. And the Dodgers lead 1-0. Change off the plate, 2-0. And off speed for a strike. That's that changeup. That's his number 1 pitch. Two and 1. Missed away, ball 3. One thing the Brewers are doing, they are striking out. They have struck out 8 times tonight. They're second to Houston. Off speed. Grandal way out in front. Imagine it was the junior high school coach who told him to work on your changeup. It's gotten him to the big leagues. Fouled away. Another off speed pitch. Lewis Coleman now is up in the Dodger bullpen, but we don't know what that means. Urias is in the dugout. And now Rick Honeycutt talking to him. But he has the windbreaker on, so he might be finished. So is Grandal. Strikeout number 4 and 1 away. So Urias has gone the required 5, and he goes out leading 1-0 if indeed he's going out. But with Coleman throwing in the bullpen and having made 85 pitches, that might be just about right for another workout. His 5th game. Pretty good fastball to Venable, 0-1. Scott Van Slyke now makes it official. Scotty comes out on deck, so he's going to bat for Urias. So Julio is done. The kid from Culiacan will go out leading 1-0 unless the Dodgers come up with something else. 5 innings, 8 strikeouts, 1 walk, 85 pitches. He's something. There's another great changeup. 1-2. Chip off the old block. His dad Max played over a dozen years in the big leagues. And down he goes. So another young pitcher, Zach Davies, has struck out 5, and he is also unraveling a string. He retired 7 in a row, and here goes Venable going after the change. So here's Van Slyke coming up to bat for Urias. Julio turning in a wonderful game tonight. Van Slyke had the big hit in Arizona. 3-run home run. Fly ball to right field. Perez comes up to pick it off. So that's 8 in a row retired. And at the end of 5, tough game, 1-0 Dodgers. On this day back in 1962, the wonderful New York Mets were playing. They had lost 120 games that year. And on this day, marvelous Marv Throneberry in the Polo Grounds hit a triple against the Cubs. When the relay came to the shortstop, Ernie Banks, he went over and stepped on second base. And he said to the umpire, Dusty Bodgers, Throneberry missed second base. Here comes Casey Stengel out to argue, and as he's running out on the field, the umpire at first said, don't bother, Casey. He missed first base as well. So Casey went back to the dugout. The next hitter was Charlie Neal, a former Dodger, who hit a home run. And as he's running, here comes Casey out to the foul line, pointing to Neal to touch each base on his home run. Ah, those were the days with the New York Mets. The days, D-A-Z-E. Let's go back to this one. Lewis Coleman picking up now. Tough act to follow after Urias won a strong 5. 0-1 to Ryan Braun, who twice has singled to right field, got to third in the first inning, and was picked off first in the third inning. 0-1. Urias with 8 strikeouts tonight has 29 in his young career. So if you're 19 years old, where do you stand with 29 strikeouts? Well, Ralph Branca, the boy from NYU in New York, had 70 strikeouts when he was 19. Don Drysdale had 55, and Braun goes 3 for 3. And let's see if he goes for 2. He is gonna go for 2, and the throw is not in time. So Ryan Braun doubles, and that means since they're trailing only 1-0, Milwaukee had the tying run at third in the first inning, the tying run at third in the second inning, the tying run at third in the third inning, and now they have a tying run at second, nobody out in the sixth. Of course, they also led off in the second inning with a double by Perez and left him. So Braun 3-for-3. That's as many hits as the Dodgers have tonight. LaCroix and Carter trying to pick him up. Jonathan singled to left and struck out. So Lewis Coleman gives up the double. Tying run is out there, nobody out. And hard ground ball, just fair and down the line. So here comes Braun to score. And for Lewis Coleman, after a great 5 innings, he gives up back-to-back doubles, and it's a 1-1 tie.
First baseman Chris Carter.
For Coleman, he had been doing great work. He had tossed scoreless relief 23 of 26 games. However, now back-to-back doubles, and Urias, good work, goes down the drain. So Braun brings it in, 1-1. The Brewers 1 run, 7 hits. Dodgers 1 run, 3 hits. And popped in the air foul. Coming back is Grandal. Might have a play. Can't. Tough play, that high twisting foul. So that means Carter still up there. 0-1 the count. So Urias close after 5 innings for his first victory. That's of ancient history now. One tie. Carter flied to right and struck out. As you know, he strikes out a lot. 0-1. Down and away. 1 ball and 1 strike. So big Carter, 245 pounds, trying to get one that he likes. 18 home runs, 15 doubles, 43 runs batted in. And that's a little low. 2-1. Carter looking for a strike on a 2-1 count. LaCroix taking his lead at second. Little foul ball, and the count 2-2. Lewis Coleman was originally drafted by the Royals back in 2009. He was going to school at LSU. He's from Mississippi, born in Greenwood and lives in Schlater. He's 6'4", 205 pounds. Two balls and two strikes. And a save on what would have been a wild pitch, sending the runner to third. So like a great goalie, Grandal makes a big contribution. Otherwise, there'd be a runner at third with nobody out. That thing was heading for the backstop, and a knockdown. That's what he did. Backhand and beat it to the ground. Adam Libator now gets up. 3-2 the count. And line drive, base hit to left. However, LaCroix hesitated, so they're going to have to stop him at third. So Coleman hasn't fooled anybody. Braun doubled to left. LaCroix doubles to left to drive him in. Carter a line drive single to left to put runners at first and third, and nobody out. So the big guys, Braun, LaCroix, and Carter, all come up with hits. Coleman in a lot of trouble, and the batter will be Hernan Perez, the right fielder. Rick Honeycutt trying to help Coleman, and Hernan Perez waiting at the plate. 1 run, 8 hits for Milwaukee. 1 run, 3 hits for the Dodgers, and actually the run came one swing of the bat. That was Justin Turner in the first inning. So Honeycutt talking to Coleman. By the way, LaCroix, who had that double to score Braun, is hitting .224 against left-handers. He's hitting .341 against right-handers, and he's a right-hand batter. So it's amazing the so-called splits, how they can differ so much, sometimes against the way you think. So here's Perez, doubled and struck out, 1 for 2. LaCroix at third, Carter at first, nobody out. 0-1. Perez, 25 years old, originally drafted by the Tigers, lives in Venezuela. Boy, can you imagine you're a young kid playing in the United States, you're from Venezuela, and every time you look at the news, it's a nightmare. A bunt attempt is missed. Runners were holding, 0-2. Socialism failing to work as it always does, this time in Venezuela. You talk about giving everybody something free, and all of a sudden there's no food to eat. And who do you think is the richest person in Venezuela? The daughter of Hugo Chavez. Hello. Anyway, 0-2. Oh boy, what a bad at bat for Hernan Perez. So a big strikeout. He goes down a second time. First and third, 1 out. And Scooter Gennett, left-hand batter, coming up. Another meeting at the mound. It's been called by Dave Roberts. And with Gennett, left-hander, he's got Adam Libator in the bullpen. So the thought is he's going to go there, but let's see. Is he? Yes, he is. So we'll be back. brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop online at choosenissan.com. We have a 1-1 tie. Adam Liberatore comes out of the Dodger bullpen to pick up for Lewis Coleman. Runners at first and third, 1 out. Milwaukee has been threatening since the first inning. At first and third in the first inning, failed to score. Leadoff double in the second, failed to score. First and third, 1 out in the third, failed to score. 2 out single in the fourth, failed to score. And here, 2 doubles and a single for 1 run. So 1-1, and Scooter Gennett hitting .259. Scooter has struck out and singled to left. If they get down to Davy's spot and they're thinking of a hitter, they get right-hander Carlos Torres up in the bullpen for Milwaukee. So left-hander against left-hander. LaCroix down the line from third. We saw Perez tried to bunt. Whoa, he almost came out of his shoes. 0-1 to count to Scooter Gennett. That's a swing. He's been a pest last year against the Dodgers. He hit .333 against them. 0-1. One ball and 1 strike. So Braun opened with a double against Coleman. LaCroix doubled him home. Carter singled LaCroix to third. Perez struck out. And here's Gennett. Behind him, Keon Broxton, the young center fielder. 1-1. And a fastball in the upper part of the strike zone. 1-2. Nine Brewers have struck out. So that means they have struck out as a team 640 times. Breaking ball up. 2-2. Dodgers have struck out 5 times. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Big pitch. Remember Carter, the big man over there at first. Down the line from third comes LaCroix. Fastball hit just inside the line. That will score easily, LaCroix. Carter going to third. And with the third double of the inning, Gennett goes to second base. So it is 2-1 in favor. And of course, Lewis Coleman is charged with the runs in the inning, so he could lose. However, it's only the 6th inning. Fastball out over the plate, and Gennett doubles to left. Second hit, run batted in. Scoring is LaCroix. Carter all the way to third. Now here's Broxton, grounded out and struck out. Martin Maldonado is out on deck. Broxton came into the game hitting .140. Second and third, the infield up on the left, and ball 1. So Coleman came in, gave up 2 runs and 3 hits. Carter at third, also the responsibility of Coleman, and Gennett at second base belongs to Liberatore. 2-1 Milwaukee. Dodgers had Turner homer in the first inning. They've not really been heard from again. Davies doing a tremendous job, and now young Zach is leading 2-1. 1 ball and no strikes to Keon Broxton. Foul back. Broxton, good athlete. I think we talked earlier about the fact that he was a fine wide receiver. He and his cousin got very good in skateboarding. They do new tricks every day. And the shop went on to sponsor Broxton, provided him with free boards and taught him tremendous balance. From skateboarding to the big leagues. 1-1. That's low, ball 2. Down in the Dodger bullpen, Chris Hatcher is up. So Urias for 5 was brilliant. Coleman was not. And Liberatore has given up a double to the only man he faced. Two on one. The bullpen has been and still is very effective. The 3rd in the National League. That's a strike. You have the Mets with an ERA of 3.1. The Washington Nationals 3.1. And the Dodgers 3rd 3.1. Liberatore has not allowed a run in his last 14 games. Joe Blanton has done very well. Opponents hitting 134 against him. 2-2 to Keon Broxton. Maldonado on deck. 1 out. Little chopper to short, backhanded by Seager. The throw is wide of the plate, but the tag is on. So Big Carter, pretty hard to miss him at 245 pounds, and Grandal got a little of him. So on the fielder's choice, Broxton is first. Gannett had to hold since the ball was hit to the shortstop, and Carter is erased. Zach Davies and not Maldonado is coming up. Very close at the plate. But Carter's caught on a good tag by Grandal, who actually had to come up in front of the plate to handle the throw by Seager. So it is 2-1 in favor of Milwaukee. And here's the young pitcher Davies, who has struck out and grounded out against Urias. Oh, and 1. So for the manager, Craig Counsell, thinking about going to Maldonado, and once they got the lead, he decides to stay with his pitcher. By the way, for Maldonado to call back, he's hitting .095, so not a bad decision to stay with Davies. 0-1. Fastball in there. 0-2. Davies, the 7th man to come to the plate. Gannett at second, Broxton at first. 2 out. Two runs, 9 hits for Milwaukee. 1 run, the home run. 3 hits. So outside of Turner's home run, the Dodgers have 2 hits. Jonathan LaCroix has 2 hits, a single and a double. Scored 1 and knocked in 1. Fastball at 94, and Davies still manages to get a little bit of it. No balls and 2 strikes. One and 2. Interesting reading a couple of articles as a grandfather, I always talk to the little grandsons who want to play ball, and I say, that's fine. You can pitch. Big thing, throw strikes, but don't throw curveballs. You'll hurt your arm. Well, according to a couple of very high prestigious medical studies, they say that's not true. Fastball, foul down the line, going back into the crowd. What they say is it's not throwing the curveball. It's just pitching too much. And I look at a couple of the grandkids. Usually they only let them pitch a couple of innings. But if they play 7 days a week, that's the problem. And that's what the experts say. Overthrowing more than anything else. 1-2. It's 2-1 Milwaukee. 6th inning, 2 out. And a 2-2 count. Dodgers, when they come up in the bottom of the 6th, they'll start with Chase Utley. And down he goes. And hold it, foul tip that gets away. So he is still there. In the inning, Braun doubled. LaCroix doubled. Carter singled. Perez struck out. Gannett doubled. Waiting to make sure that Mike Everett's okay. He got a little bit of that. All right, Davies back up, and the count remains. So Deuce is wild. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, 2 in. 2 on. Gannett at second, Broxton at first. Now he goes. So Liberatore gets a strikeout, but 2 runs come over. And at the end of 5.5 innings, the Brewers 2, Dodgers 1. Brought to you by BMW. See a Southern California BMW Center today for exceptional offers or visit SoCalBMW.com. And by Children's Hospital Los Angeles. We treat kids better. Last night was a brawl. Tonight 2-1 in favor of Milwaukee. And a look back. Jim Mudcat Grant pitching for the Dodgers. He was a big star in Minnesota, and he was certainly welcomed here. He was from a little town called La Hoochie, and we always called him the lad from La Hoochie. Meanwhile, it's a young man by the name of Davies, who has turned in a wonderful job. He's retired the last 8 in a row. he has held the Dodgers to 1 run and 3 hits. Chase Utley has grounded out and singled, and leads off with a drive to left. Over to backhanded on the run is Ryan Braun. So Utley goes deep the other way, and we have 1 down.
Corey Seager.
With Utley swinging at the first pitch, it brings up the note. Zach Davies, when he was at bat, saw 8 pitches. As a pitcher, he has not made as many as 8 pitches to any Dodger batter, and he made just 1 to Utley. That's in for a strike. Brian Hagan, who does such an incredible job digging up notes, which we gratefully pass along, but he should get the credit. Seager is struck out, hit into a double play. 1 ball and 1 strike. By the way, a report, and an interesting one indeed. Hyun-Jin Ryu pitched tonight. He made 60 pitches. He went 4 scoreless innings. Fly ball, and it's going to drop for a base hit. So Seager 0 for 2. Flares 1 to left, and that'll bring up Justin Turner. Turner came up in the first inning and didn't waste any time as he hit one 3/4 of the way up the pavilion in left field, give the Dodgers their only run. Next time up in the 3rd inning, he hit a high twisting pop fly down the right field line. Perez was coming one way, Carter the other way, and in the middle, Jeanette made a great one-hand catch just inside the foul line in right field. Get back to Hyun-Jin Ryu. 60 pitches, 4 scoreless innings, and struck out 5. So slowly but surely hoping to get back to the big leagues. 0-1. 2 runs, 9 hits for Milwaukee. Milwaukee has left 7 in their 6 innings of at-bats. 0-1. 1-1. So the pitch count now for Davies, 68. One of the things as he battled his way from the low minors to the big leagues, they thought that Davies, who was so slim or skinny, whatever the word is, that fatigue would set in. Well, he's battling him right now. 1-1. That's a strike. 1-2. Davies with a very good sinker, trying to keep the ball on the ground. Joe Blanton now gets up in the Dodger bullpen. 2-1 Milwaukee. They've won 15 of the last 22 here at Dodger Stadium. That goes back to 2009. Seager has 1 stolen base. Good sinking fastball, curveball, and then that changeup. The book says he throws that sinker about 60% of the time. Got him. So Turner strikes out. 2 down. That would be the 6th strikeout for young Zach Davies. Just a good fastball that hammered him. So with 2 out, Adrian Gonzalez coming up. Gonzalez singled to center, and then last time up called out on a check swing. They are not going to overshift ever since Gonzalez got the base hit in the first inning. His ground ball went right about where Villar is, into left center field for a hit. So they say, okay, if you want to go the other way, we'll keep Hill wide of third. We'll keep Villar as the shortstop, and we'll take Gennett and put him out in shallow right field. 1 ball and no strikes to Adrian Gonzalez. 71 pitches in 6 innings. That's great. But Davies, 12 pitches an inning. That checks. 2-0. His name is Zach Ryan Davies. Born in Chandler, Arizona. Lives over in Gilbert, Arizona. Went to Mesquite High School at Gilbert. 2-0. Fastball, and still he finds a hole on the left side. Seager stops at second. So they tried to position him, and still Adrian finds the hole.
Left fielder, number 21,
and that'll bring up Trayce Thompson. So Gonzalez goes after that sinking fastball away, does the smart thing. He doesn't try to pull it. He had the gap and he exploited it. So Adrian is 2 for 3. 2 base hits the other way. Trayce Thompson walked in the first inning, grounded to short in the 4th. So far, the sinking fastball has helped Davies. The Dodgers have only hit 3 fly balls to the outfield. They also had a pop fly, a couple of them on the infield. Trayce grounded to short and walked. 2 on, 2 out, 2-1 in favor of Milwaukee, and that's a strike. Davies, 23 years old. 0-1. One ball, 1 strike. Giants won playing in Tampa Bay earlier today, 5-1. So for the moment, the Dodgers trail by 7. Should they lose, they will trail by 7.5. If they come from behind, they would then go back to trailing by 6.5. Pickoff play and a low throw that gets away from Gennett, and the runners are going to take advantage to go to second and third. Craig Counsell played the infield, so he knows the shock as that thing kicked off Gennett. So LaCroix does a very smart thing. He goes out to the mound and just talks to the pitcher. Gennett to the bag, but it's on a bounce and went off the heel of his glove. So Davies should get the error and does. Bad pickoff. Might have had a play, actually. So a E1. Seager is now at third. Gonzalez at second. 2 out and a 1-1 count to Trayce Thompson. See just how important that error is. Little nubber by the mound. Gennett comes up with it and makes the play. So again, keeping the ball on the ground. Davies gets out of the inning. The Dodgers leave 2, and at the end of 6, 2-1 Milwaukee. As well, 2 more games with Milwaukee tomorrow night and then Sunday afternoon, and then 3 at night, all at 7:10 with the Washington Nationals. And what an opening act on Monday the 20th. Steven Strasburg and Clayton Kershaw. That's the kind you put up in a marquee. Meanwhile, Joe Blanton, the 4th Dodger pitcher. Urias won a great 5. Coleman and Liberatore, and now Blanton. Joe with a good ERA, 2.2. And you can see 35 strikeouts, only 9 walks, and a strike to the switch hitter Villar. Naturally right-handed, but he's done pretty well. You can see he's just up a little bit on the bat. You can see the knob. Foul ball. When he bats right-handed, his hand's right over the end of the bat, but left-handed, you can see that knob. 0-2 the count. Jonathan Villar. 2-1 Milwaukee, top of the 7th. Off the plate. Villar has 6 home runs, 4 left-handed. One ball and 2 strikes. Big chopper backing up for the hop as Adrian spots the throw. Safe at first is Villar. He beat Blanton over there, and with a head first slide has himself, I will assume it will go as a base hit. Should have been an out, and it will be a base hit. Take another look. Gonzalez backs up, makes the throw to Blanton, but the pitcher is so busy. First of all, he's running. Second, he wants to have to catch the ball, and then he has to find the bag, and Villar just beat him. He had too much to do. Villar has 24 stolen bases. So by allowing him to get on, the Dodgers are opening up a Pandora's box, and Villar takes his lead. Now Aaron Hill. And the strike, 0-1. Villar has 9 out of 10 steals against left-hand pitching. He will steal 9 of 10 when the club is behind. He's 9 of 11 when they're tied. One thing, however, he has 24 stolen bases, but he's been caught 8 times. Villar with that infield single now has 15 infield hits. So Jonathan Villar over there held on by Adrian. 2-1 Milwaukee, 7th inning. Boy, that was close. He is taking a big lead. If you look at an infield, you see the cutout area. If you look at the point of the cutout as the screen to the left, the closer he gets to that point, he's about a foot away, trying to increase. Now they might go after him. You get that far out, yeah. That's the point. Anytime you come to a ball game and you see a good runner at first base, just remember that point. They can get just about that far, and immediately the pitcher is going to throw over. And with a guy who has stolen 24, if you let him get to that point and don't throw over, you might be the victim of a stolen base. So the battle within the war here. Of course, Blanton has been playing professionally since 2002, 15 years. He's had every kind of runner over there at first base. All right, Aaron Hill at the plate. Villar, the shortstop, the runner at first. Nobody out. 2-1 Milwaukee in the 7th. He's not there yet. Just about now. Not going. Foul ball down the line. 0-2 the count. Aaron Hill tonight grounded to short, walked, and struck out. Last night, Hill had a walk, a single, stolen base, and a home run. All right, again, Villar. No balls and 2 strikes. Of course, he's thinking about a pitch out. He's out to that point. Not going. And that's a strike. So Aaron Hill is called out by Mike Everett. That's a big out with a speedster at first.
Left fielder number 8, Ryan Braun.
So Brandon gets a strikeout. 8-3. That's 11 Brewers have struck out. Last night, 11 struck out. So 22 in 2 games. 11 tonight would give them 642 strikeouts, right behind Houston. And another beach ball comes out of the bleachers. Thompson has to go over and retrieve. Ryan Braun's having a big night. Single to right in the first inning, single to right in the third, but was picked off first base and double to left and scored the tying run in the 6th. They are sure keeping an eye, and well they should, over there at first. Ryan Braun at the plate, born in Mission Hills, lives in Granada Hills. You're still waiting for Villar to run. Now he's got a really good lead. He's not going, and the pitch foul back. Villar that time actually went beyond the point. So Gonzalez listening to Carlos Cabrera talking to Villar. Oh, and 1. Urias, Coleman, Liberatore, and Blanton. There goes Villar. He's not to that point yet. Braun with 1 out and Jonathan LaCroix on deck. The catcher having a big night, single and a double. Scored 1, knocked in 1. And that hits him. So Braun hit by the pitch. Interesting, Braun 11 home runs, a power hitter. And that's the first time he's been hit by a pitch.
That's number 20, Jonathan LaCroix.
So now the speedster is at second. Braun goes to first. The batter will be LaCroix. And if you weren't with us, a reminder, in the 3rd inning last night, with runners at first and second, Villar led the way to a double steal, and he wound up at third. Jonathan LaCroix hitting .314, 10 home runs, 34 runs batted in. LaCroix, interestingly enough, has hit into only 4 double plays. Dodgers would try to turn that trick right now. So Villar at second, Braun at first, 1 out. When they pulled off the double steal last night, Villar was at second and Hill was at first. Braun runs better than Hill. Late breaking ball for a strike. Utley doing the best he can, standing behind second base. trying to take any kind of a lead away from Villar. But then he has to hurry to get back before the pitch. 0-1. 2 on, 1 out, 2-1 Milwaukee, 7th inning. And there they go, double steal. The pitch is not thrown by Grandal, and for the second night in a row, a double steal to put runners at second and third. Boy, they do love to run. They're an exciting ball club. Grandal looked, and there just wasn't time to get anybody. So they pull off the double steal. Now first base open with LaCroix, and then Chris Carter on deck. The pitch was a strike, so the count's 0-2. So Villar at third, Braun at second. That would be 60 stolen bases now, and the infield has to play up. And LaCroix strikes out. What a huge out that is. So LaCroix goes down chasing a slider. 2 outs in the inning. And Gary Carter, Chris Carter, the first baseman coming up, is a strikeout hitter. I guess it would be more correct to say a strikeout batter. But one way or another, he has struck out 86 times. 1 for 3. And a high but very playable fly ball. Jock Peterson almost fell down. He did not have a jump. He wasn't quite sure what to do, but the ball was plenty high for him to get under it. So Carter, a fly ball to center. No runs, 1 hit, a double steal, 2 left. 2-1 Milwaukee. A tough ball game, 2-1 in favor of Milwaukee. The Brewers have had plenty of chances to get more than 2 runs out of 10 hits. So they even went to the double steal and came up empty. So Jock Peterson, who had some trouble getting a start on that high fly ball by Carter, now leads it off. Check swing for a strike. A modified shift. Villar has not gone over beyond the bag. 0-1. The outfield plays him almost straight away. 1-1. J.P. Howell gets up in the Dodger bullpen. Will Smith, left-hander we saw last night, gets up in the Milwaukee pen. Bottom of the 7th inning, 2-1 Milwaukee. Ground ball to the middleman, that's Gannett. So Peterson goes 0 for 3 as he grounds out. Say, friends, a reminder, Dodgers and Nationals Wednesday at 7:10. Be one of the first 40,000 fans in attendance. Receive a Dusty Baker bobblehead presented by Security Benefit. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Johnny Lee Baker from Riverside, the Rage of Riverside. He'll be here Monday night. Change-up missed. Ball 1. 80 pitches now for young Davies. One ball, no strikes, and no pitch. In the last game against the Mets, he made 97 pitches. His high against the Cardinals, 105. Good breaking ball, off speed. For Milwaukee, when we were talking about they had so many chances, they are 3 for 13 with runners in scoring position. 3 for 13. Dodgers 0 for 2. Two balls, one strike. Fastball in the dirt. So for young Davies, he started the year 0 and 3. He is 5-0 in his last 8 starts. He has not had to really struggle. No more than 17 pitches in an inning. Change up in there. Boy, that's a big league pitch. 3-1, and you throw that change up for a strike. Fouled away. Will Venable waiting on deck. Ground ball to Carter, and he drops it. Picks it up, throws in time. So Carter fortunately had the pitcher alertly come into the bag.
Right fielder number 25, Will Venable.
2 down, and Will Venable coming up. It's a good thing for Milwaukee that Davies did not take it for granted. Sometime a pitcher might say, well, he'll take it himself. Had he not covered, Grandal would have been aboard. So a little embarrassing, but not nearly so much if the runner had reached. Here's Venable, ball 1. And it hit him apparently on the foot. And he'll go to first. Hit by the pitch. Kike Hernandez is now going to come up, and he will bat for Blanton. Meanwhile, Pat Murphy's on the phone. Got him on the back foot.
Now batting, pitch hitter number 14, Kike Hernandez.
So the hit by pitcher extends the inning. Hernandez, a right-hand batter. We're watching to see what Pat Murphy, who was a famous coach at Arizona State, but also coached Craig Counsell in Notre Dame. And when Craig got the managerial job, he wanted Pat as his bench coach. All right, Kike Hernandez. Dodgers used Van Slyke earlier, and he flied to right field. Hernandez no longer with the flowing locks down to his shoulders. He shaved his head. change, and he misses. Ball one. He shaved his head. Oh, kiddingly. He said, I'm hitting 198. I don't deserve long hair. But he really shaved his head. His dad is taking treatment for cancer. 1-0. Venable at one time, when he was playing every day in San Diego, he could steal a lot of bases. In the minor leagues, he stole up to 21. But in the big leagues, he had 29, 26, 24, 22. So they have to watch him. Tying run with 2 out, 7th inning. Can't believe that he would try to go, because if he's thrown out, Dodgers then have the pitcher spot leading off. But then again, they can maneuver the other way around and change the furniture. So let's see. 1 ball and no strikes. Not going on ball 2. George Lombard over to say something to Venable. Willow was a great basketball player at Princeton. Not going. That drops in for a strike. 2-1 to Kike Hernandez. Kike hitting 197. Meanwhile, he's up to 90 pitches. Is Zach Davies. His high 105. 2-1. Little droll at the shortstop. Villa in a hurry makes the play, and that's the inning. No runs, no hits, a hit batter and a man left, and at the end of 7, it's 2-1 Milwaukee. Game series. It's tomorrow night, and it'll be Chase Anderson on the mound for Milwaukee. He is 4-6, and he'll go up against Mike Bolsinger, who is 1-4, and an even higher ERA of 5.7. J.P. Howell becomes the 5th Dodger pitcher, and he'll start with Hernan Perez, then Scooter Gennett, and then Keon Broxton. Bottom of the lineup, ball 1. Perez doubled, got to 3rd in the 2nd inning and stayed there. Struck out in the 4th, struck out again in the 6th. 2-0. He struck out with second and third. Two runs, 10 hits for Milwaukee. 1 run, 5 hits for the Dodgers. Ground ball right where Justin Turner is. 1 away. And the batter, Scooter Gennett, who struck out, singled, and doubled.
Scooter Gennett.
Scooter doubled in LaCroix with the difference in the game. Hitting .263. He also made the defensive play of the game. A great catch going down the right field line on a pop fly hit by Justin Turner. If it drops, it would have been a double. That's a strike. 0-1. Down in the Milwaukee bullpen, the winning pitcher from last night, Tyler Thornburg, begins to warm up. Thornburg made 13 pitches in the 8th inning last night. That's a strike. 0-2 when the Dodgers bat in the bottom of the 8th. Utley, Seager, and Turner. One ball and 2 strikes. Dodgers got a run in the first inning with 2 out. Justin Turner homered. The offense really has not been heard from again. For the Brewers, they've had something brewing every inning. They've somehow come up with 2 runs. 2-2. They're brewing in every inning, but what's ailing them is only 2 runs. I better get out of here. 2-2. Big curveball, pop foul, out of play. Gennett finding something funny with Yasmani Grandal. Fastball lifted down the line, slicing foul. Thompson comes over, no play. Though Gennett's still there. Scooter came in hitting .256 and 2 for 3. So that's bumped the average up a couple of points. Just missed 3-2. Scooter, born in Cincinnati, lives in Sarasota. Brewers drafted him back in 2009. And pokes one over the head of Turner inside the line for a bloop single to left. Makes a big turn and then goes back. So he is 3 for 4. 2 singles and a double.
Center fielder number 23, Keon Broxton.
So Keon Broxton coming up. Went down for a pitch that almost hit the ground. It was so low, and he winds up with a base hit. Gennett last year wore the Dodgers out. He was 6 for 18. He had .333. Well, he is 2 for 3 and now 3 for 4. Here's Broxton. Gennett 0 for 4 last night. Kirk Neuenhuis is out on deck. He appeared as a pinch hitter last night and walked. Broxton is 0 for 3. He had an infield single and struck out twice last night. Broxton came into the game batting 140. 0-1. One out. Broxton hitting in the 8th spot. You have the pinch hitter Neuenhuis on deck. One and two. Urias went 5. He was brilliant, struck out 8, did not allow a run. Coleman, however, in relief, allowed 2. Then Liberatore, Blanton, and now Howell. Rick Honeycutt making his notes, and the number of pitches burned up by each pitcher. 1 and 2. Dodgers have only had 3 hits with runners in scoring position, and it hasn't helped them. They're only run a home run by Turner. It'll be Utley, Seager, and Turner in the bottom of the 8th. So Broxton, who has certainly been unimpressive in the 2 games, a couple of errors, strikes out again. So a young kid trying to find his way. And now Neuenhuis coming up. Kirk Neuenhuis walked in the 9th inning last night. Neuenhuis was briefly with the Angels last year. And a strike. He's a very good bunter, and he has a lot of speed. He's a threat to steal. Kirk was born in Santa Monica, went to Azusa Pacific University. With 2 down, you wonder about Gannett stealing, but he's only stolen 2 out of 3, hitting so far down in the lineup. Oh, and 1. 1 and 1. Neuenhuis, originally signed by the New York Mets, came up to the Mets 4 years ago and was with them for a couple of years. Went to the Angels in 2015, and here he is with the Brewers. One and 1. Neuenhuis, in high school as a junior, he was a star running back. You look at those sloping shoulders, and you certainly think of power. In a snowstorm in Colorado, he rushed for 267 yards to lead Denver Christian to a football championship. 2 and 1. Ground ball backhanded by the Gold Glove, and that's that. So Neuenhuis hits it hard to the wrong man. And at the end of 7.5, it's still 2-1 Milwaukee. Esurance MLB All-Star Game ballot is here. So go to Dodgers.com, choose your hashtag ASG-worthy-stars, and send them to the MLB All-Star Game presented by MasterCard July 12th in San Diego. Vote today, vote tomorrow. Vote at Dodgers.com/vote. Neuenhuis, who came close to hitting one over the bag except for Adrian Gonzalez's glove, stays in the game in right field. Tyler Thornburg will go in Perez's spot, and we go to the bottom of the 8th. Thornburg made 13 pitches in the 8th inning last night, retired the side, and struck out 1. Utley takes a strike, 0-1. First week in June, Thornburg really impressed people in a victory over the Phillies. He retired his 23rd consecutive batter. A drive to right. Neuenhuis coming up, puts it away. 1 down. So Utley goes 1 for 4.
Shortstop number 5, Corey Seager.
And the batter is Corey Seager. Seager struck out, hit into a double play, and single to left. Dodgers had one big opportunity. That was in the 6th inning. Dodgers were at first and second. Davies tried to make a pickoff throw, threw it in the dirt. It got away from Gannett. So in the 6th inning, the Dodgers had second and third with 2 out, but Trayce Thompson grounded out. 1-1 to Corey Seager. Otherwise, the Dodgers really have not had much of a threat. You'd have to go back to the 1st inning with 2 out. Gonzalez singled and Thompson walked, but Peterson popped up, and that's about it. Dodgers don't like to get in 1-run games, obviously. At home, they are 4-5, and total 1-run games 8-13. Two and two. Trayce Thompson, 2 ground balls and a walk. Seager struck out, hit into a double play and singled. Fastball fouled away. Thornburg is a big fella. In direct contrast, he checks in a good 190, maybe a little more. Out of Houston, Texas, 3rd-round pick by the Brewers. Out of Southern University in Charleston, South Carolina. Didn't take him long. Drafted in 2010. He was up in 2012. So Seager strikes out. 2 out in the 8th inning. Paid attendance tonight, 44,998. 44,998. Last night, 44,183. Tonight, fireworks. They talk about splits, and when you talk about a pitcher, they talk about pitching against left-handers and right-handers, and they also talk about pitching day and night. Well, for Thornburg, in the daytime, his earned run average is 5.9. At night, 0.53. And that's a strike. So Tyler has been with the Brewers since 2012, and each year they begin to rely on him more and more. 1-1. Fastball jammed him, foul back. 1-2. If this next pitch misses and the count goes to 2-2, and remember Seager struck out on a 2-2 count, but if this pitch misses, so the count would be 2-2, opponents are 0 for 26. So let's say if he misses, and then what happens? In the dirt, fouled away, still 1-2. By the way, left-handers are hitting 109 against Thornburg. Right-handers 176. And miss. So okay, now we have the desired count. 2 balls and 2 strikes. And again, I'll repeat, the hitters are 0 for 26 in this count. He's got the 2 fastballs, curveball and a changeup, and added a cutter. 2-2. Almost hit him. 3-2. Turner, by the way, has been hit 7 times. Big curveball, hanger, it is gone. And the Dodgers have tied it up. So Justin Turner homered in the first. Justin Turner gets a big slow curveball and homers in the 8th. Thornburg has now given up 5 home runs. So it is Turner getting the 5s from the team. For Milwaukee, they've spent all night standing around on the base paths, and now they've been caught. 2 runs, 11 hits for Milwaukee. 2 runs, 6 hits for the Dodgers. 0-1. So all those great numbers by Thornburg, and every now and then it happens. The pitch was up and in, and Turner hits it out. 0-2. Adrian single to center, struck out, single to left. His base hit to center was a ground ball through the left side of the infield. So Turner hits 2 tonight. He is hitting so much better than in the early part of the season. He now has 8 home runs. Foul back. When the Brewers come up in the 9th, they will have Villar, Hill, and Braun. And if anybody gets on, LaCroix. So it'll be the heart of the Milwaukee lineup. Oh, 0-2. '94. A little anger had to be on that pitch. 1-2 the count. Thornburg's earned run average coming into the game 2.6. Two and two. Well, we were talking on a 2-2 count. The hitters were 0 for 26, but then it got 3-2, and boom, Trayce Thompson waiting on deck. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, 2-2 tie. And down goes Adrian. However, the damage is done by Mr. Turner. So Justin homers in the first, Justin homers in the 8th, and we have a 2-2 tie. Heading for the 9th. Two in the ninth inning. Let's get back a minute to Tyler Thornburg. Remember, on the 2-2 count, he struck out Seager, and that made the opposition 0 for 26 on a 2-2 count. He went 2-2 to Turner and missed for ball 3. So 3-2, he gave up the home run. The next hitter was Adrian Gonzalez, and the count went to 2-2. And what did Thornburg do? He struck out Adrian Gonzalez. So on that 2-2 count, Thornburg has the hitters 0 for 27. But the 3-2 pitch, that tied up the game. So here's Kenley now, looking for a save or a win. And of course, in this instance, you figure he would get a win, pitching 1 inning, and the Dodgers pull it out. So we'll see. Villar singled, led a double steal, but to no avail. Milwaukee's done everything but score. 2 runs, 11 hits. 1-1. Kenley with 161 saves to tie Gagne. If he picks one up tonight, or whenever he picks one up, it'll be 162, and that'll be the most saves in franchise history. Gagne wore number 38, and the battle cry with him, remember, was game over. And there you can see a fan wearing one of those shirts. Dodgers trying to keep Villar off the bases for the second time in 2 games. He's been the lead man in a double steal. Last night he had a single, that double steal, and a home run. 1-2. Strike 3. Villar can't believe it. So Villar called out, 1 down.
Third baseman number 9, Aaron Hill.
Whoa, quick frame by Grandal to make it look like a strike. Aaron Hill grounded to short, walked, struck out twice. Fouled away. In looking at Gagne working against the Brewers, Aaron Hill 4 for 10 with a double. Fouled away. 0-2 to Aaron Hill. Hill came in hitting .266. He has walked, grounded out, struck out twice. Urias for 5 great innings, 8 strikeouts, no runs. Coleman gave up 2, then Liberatore, Blanton, Howell, and now Jansen. Davies and Thornburg for Milwaukee. And that's going to be a fly ball. Thompson was deep, and it's going to drop along the line, and holding on is Hill. So a 1-out single will bring up Ryan Braun.
Left fielder number 8, Ryan Braun.
So that means Milwaukee 2 runs, 12 hits. The Dodgers 2 runs really on 2 hits, the 2 home runs by Justin Turner. Braun's had a big night. Single to right in the first, single to right in the third, but was picked off first. Double to left in the 6th and scored. Hit by a pitch, was the trailer in the double steal, but Milwaukee came up empty in the 7th inning. Braun had been in quite a slump, and for Milwaukee, they have to be happy to see the big guy come up with 3 hits tonight. Aaron Hill is not the speedster. If Villar had gotten the base hit, the Dodgers would be in trouble. Doesn't figure Hill will do any running. 0-1. Braun last year against the Dodgers hit .280. He had a home run and a double. The one thing here, you have Jansen, a tower of strength on the mound, weak as far as holding runners on, and you have a running team in Milwaukee. In his career, Jansen has been burned. Stolen bases 35 out of 40. But Hill is not a runner. 0-2. So again, it's a good thing he got Villar, because he would be running. Oh, and 2 to Ryan Braun. Ryan will be 33 in November. He's been in the big leagues with Milwaukee since 2007. Foul back. Ryan has had some big years. 2008, 37 home runs, 106 runs batted in. Next year, 32 home runs, 114 runs batted in. In 11, 33 home runs, 111, and then in 2012, 41 home runs and 112 runs batted in. Oh, and 2. Two, top of the ninth. Brewers leaving a lot of men on base. Down he goes. So Braun strikes out after going 3 for 3. A cutter that just moved in under the barrel of the bat. So with 2 out, 2 strikeouts, Jonathan Lucroy. Lucroy faced Jansen once and walked. Jonathan tonight, single to left in the first inning, double to left to drive in a run, and then he scored on a double by Gannett. And then last time up with second and third and 1 out. That was a huge at bat. He struck out against Blanton. So Jeffries, who came in to lock it up in a shaky 9th inning last night, joining Will Smith. Remember, against Jeffries, the Dodgers loaded the bases only to have Seager strike out. Milwaukee has left 10 men on base. The only time they were quiet, they went out in order back in the 5th inning. They're keeping an eye on Hill. It is doubtful that Hill would run, not with Lucroy at the plate. Jansen is 2-2. Earned run average 1.7. Like Kershaw, Jansen has a remarkable set of numbers, strikeouts and walks. Coming into the game, 30 strikeouts, 4 walks. Kershaw, 7 walks, 133 strikeouts. We'll see Clayton Monday night against Steven Strasburg. High, foul, and out of play. 1 ball and 1 strike. LaCroix, good hitter, came into the game batting .310. LaCroix on this road trip coming into this game hitting .400, and he is 2 for 4. Two and 1. LaCroix a single and a double, and he has struck out twice. Jansen has struck out Villar and Braun. Aaron Hill certainly doesn't figure to be running. 2 and 1, unless Counsell wants to play hit and run, which would be pretty doubtful. Two and 2. Just turned 30 years old, from Florida. 2 years ago in the MVP voting, he turned up 4th behind Kershaw, Stanton, and McCutchen. Jonathan Charlie LaCroix. And a mile-high pop foul, so it's Grandal. So no runs, 1 hit, a man left. So here they come, Thompson, Peterson, and Grandal. Bottom of the 9th in a 2-2 tie. Year, the crowd has asked Trayce Thompson to end the ball game, and he did it in May with a home run right here at Dodger Stadium. And he had number 2, a walk-off home run. That over the wall. So he has done it twice, and of course the crowd is asking him to do it again. It will be Thompson, Peterson, and Grandal against the left-hander Will Smith. Will appeared in the 6th inning last night. Got in some trouble. Gave up a couple of hits and finally had been bailed out by Thornburg. So here's Trayce. Walked, grounded out twice. Will Smith is out of Newman, Georgia, and was originally drafted by the Angels back in 2008. Smitty is big, 6'5", 240. Strike. So we've gone from the slender Davies to the big left-hander, Will Smith. Off speed, 0-2. Fastball, curveball, slider. They say he doesn't have that much of a feel yet for his changeup. He throws it maybe 3% of the time. Ball one. 40 some odd percent. The four-seamer and then the slider. Turner, meanwhile, with 2 home runs tonight, has kept the Dodgers in the game. 2-2, bottom of the ninth. And foul down the right field line. Trace came into the game hitting .264. He has 11 home runs, 26 runs batted in, and he is 0 for 2 tonight. Couple of ground balls. 1-2. Dodger bench watching Trace. Off speed, just missed. 2-2. In rating his pitches with Peterson on deck, they rate his slider the #1 pitch. In the dirt. 3-2. He threw sliders in high school, but they hurt his arm, so he stopped. And then when he finally got to the Royals and in their minor league, he was grown up enough to try it again, and the sliders started to work. He says it saved his career. Still 3-2. Fastball up and away. From March till June 1, Will Smith tried to recover from an odd injury. It happened in the shower. High fly ball, but very playable. And Broxton is there. 1 away. March the 25th, he was in spring training. Will had a lower back strain. And while taking a shower, he was taking his spikes off after a game. He was standing on one leg to take off the other shoe. When he lost his balance, twisted the knee. He pulled hard on the shoe. It stayed on. The knee went up and popped, and down he went. Tore lateral collateral ligaments. So he was out until the 1st of June, just trying to take a shoe off. 1 down. Peterson. Well, he was trying to end it right there. Peterson has popped up twice and grounded out. Jock 0 for 3. Yasmani Grandal hitting behind him. Ground ball to the right side to Gannett. 2 down. So Peterson a tough night. 0 for 4. Unable to get the ball out of the infield. And here's Grandal. Flied to right, struck out, grounded out. Will Smith has a great earned run average of 1 coming in. He's only been in 9 games and worked 8 innings. One hopper, but right where Gannett is stationed, and down they go. So it means extra innings. The Dodgers, who are 8-13 in 1 run, get Baez ready. 4 and 5 in 1-run games here. We'll tell you about extra innings when we come back. Pedro will be facing Carter, then the pitcher spot, Thornburg and Gannett. Remember, Neuenhuis bats ninth, the right fielder. So Pedro, who gave up that big home run, is brought right back in. Last night, Villar homered in the ninth, but they'll not see Villar tonight. It'll be Chris Carter to start it off. Ramon Flores is out on deck. He would bat for the pitcher spot, Thornburg and Smith. Carter flied to right, struck out, single to left to set up a run, and flied to center. Later in that same inning that he had the base hit, he was out trying to score on the double by Gannett. So Pedro going to work. Popped up, backing out is Utley. So Carter doesn't spend much time. First ball swinging, and we have one out, top of the 10th. Ramon Flores will be coming up to bat for Will Smith.
Pitch hitter number 18, Ramon Flores.
Flores, the second pinch hitter. Neuenhuis pinch hit back in the 8th and grounded out, and then stayed in the game. Flores hitting .229. And a strike. 0-1. Ramon Flores. Outfielder, left-handed all the way. Hit his first home run of the year and his first major league home run against Jacob deGrom of the Mets in New York. Pedro trying to put him away. 0-2. One ball, two strikes. The Brewers are an exciting team to watch. Very frustrating, I'm sure, for their fans. They steal bases, they score some runs, they steal a lot, but they also strike out a lot. 14 strikeouts right now. Started with Urias striking out 8. Curveball, a one hopper. Utley stays with it. 2 down. The Dodgers have used Urias, Coleman, Liberatore, Blanton, Howell, Jansen, and Baez. Milwaukee has used Davies, Thornburg, and Smith. Thornburg let it get away. The second home run tonight hit by Justin Turner. The big one came in the 8th to tie it up. So here's Gannett. He's having a big night. 2 singles and a double. 3 for 4. Ball 1. Baez, having been burned last night, being very careful. That's going to be a strike. Gannett has 5 home runs. 1-1. Two and 1. Tomorrow night, Chase Anderson, Mike Bolsinger. Sunday afternoon, Matt Garza and Kenta Maeda. Monday night, Steven Strasburg of Washington and Clayton Kershaw. Two and one. 3-1. On deck, batting eighth, Keon Broxton, who is 0 for 4. Three balls, one strike, two down, 10th inning, 2-2. Well, down goes, well, not quite, two strikes on Gannett. 3-2. Last 3 innings, 8th, 9th, and here in the 10th. Brewers very quiet, just 2 singles. Just did poke it foul. His base hit in the 8th inning. He hit a ball that was almost in the dirt, down and away, and just plunked it into left field. Ryan Joseph Gannett, better known to the world as Scooter. Brewers 2 runs, 12 hits. Dodgers 2 runs, 6 hits. Off the plate. So a 2-out walk to Gannett brings up Keon Broxton. Broxton, batting 8th in the lineup, has been struggling in the series. Struck out twice last night, struck out twice tonight. He has an infield single for 2 games, hitting only 130. So you get the feeling, and it's very early in his career, that he's a little over his head, but we shall see. Broxton, 26 years old, so it's not as if he is just starting out. As a pro in his 8th year. Almost got him. Don't forget, Kirk Neuenhuis, pinch hit, stayed in the game in right field. He's on deck. 1 ball and no strikes. Broxton in high school, a terrific wide receiver, but opted to go his way into baseball. 6'3", 190, 2-0. Interestingly enough, this is the first extra inning game for the Dodgers at home. They're 4-3 on the road. And fouled away. For the Brewers, Brewers are 0-3 in extra games in innings and 2-0 on the road. So they're 2-3. Baez trying to put him away here in the 10th. Gannett certainly doesn't figure to run with 2 out. If Broxton makes out, then again they would be at the bottom of the lineup for the next inning. Gannett, as a runner, has stolen 2 out of 3. So chances are he will not, but with Milwaukee you never know. He is not going. 2-2 to Keon Broxton. One of the most important qualities in baseball is patience. And for Milwaukee, they have a kid like Broxton who has not impressed at all, but patience. Foul back. The cell phones have come alive, so we're sitting inside of a jewel box. You don't really get, yeah, that's better. Now you get the sense of it. It just suddenly starts. Somebody gets the idea, and the ballpark lights up. Look at that. I don't think that would be a problem for Venable or anybody else on a ball hit in the air. We'll see. 2-2. Strike 3. So young Broxton strikes out 3 times tonight. That leaves Gannett at first. We're going to the bottom of the 10th in a 2-2 tie. Last night he did a high wire act and barely made it to the other side, but make it he did. If you remember, in last night he got himself in a mess with 2 out. The Dodgers had the bases loaded, down by 2, and he struck out Corey Seager to get out of the inning. The Jeffers Tuning Cup, the Dodgers will have Venable, and he'll be followed by Howie Kendrick. The Jeffers getting ready. Venable, Kendrick, and Utley. Dodgers have gotten into the bullpen and used 6 pitchers. So Blanton went out for Hernandez. Then Howell came in, followed by Jansen, and then Baez. Venable grounded out, struck out, hit by a pitch. Baez made 18 pitches. Jansen made 16. Bottom of the 10th. Chris Hatcher is now warming up in the Dodger bullpen. And that's ball 1 to Venable. The Hatcher getting ready, and the Dodgers trying to see if they can end it in a 2-2 tie, bottom of the 10th. And hit down the right field line in the corner. Fair ball and a ground rule double. So Will Venable, a one-hopper into the right field seats. The Dodgers now have the winning run. And Mac, the Dodgers are going to change. They did have Howie Kendrick out, but they're going to go back, and it'll be A.J. Ellis coming up. So Ellis will bat for Baez on that double by Venable. So Jeffress, well, he escaped last night. The Dodgers trying to nail him tonight. Milwaukee certainly looking for the bunt. Ellis has one sacrifice, and the Dodgers ask him to get it down and move Venable to third. Utley on deck. AJ shows bunt and drops a beauty. They'll let it roll. Foul. 0-1. Jeremy Ross Jeffress by name. He's had a tough young life. He had juvenile epilepsy that caused him to get involved. Marijuana was part of his big problem. He has squared it away, we're happy to say. Carter way in looking bunt. Hill has to play caddy corner in case there's a play at third. That's a strike. 0-2. We will see. There's a play called the wheel in baseball. It has to do with a shortstop and a third baseman. A set play. And sometimes the wheel can also be used to lure that runner into thinking that they can take the big lead. And the shortstop is running right behind them. No wheel, and the bunt is down. It's a good one, picked up by Jeffress, who almost threw it away. A great play at first base by Scooter Gennett. Whoa! That thing almost wound up in the right field corner, and the game would have been over. They're going to check. The Dodgers are going to appeal the play at first. At least Bob Guerin is on the phone. Great bunt with 2 strikes. Jeffress had to beat Aaron Hill and then almost threw it. And Gennett leaps up, and the Dodgers think that maybe he had left the bag. He goes up. Did he have the ball in his glove? Take another look. He's on the bag. He's on the bag. He's on the bag. He's on the bag. All right. Ellis will be out. However, it's a huge sacrifice, and the Dodgers now have the winning run at third with 1 out. Certainly our tape showed the ball in the glove of Gennett while 1 foot was still on the bag, but they're going to check. Utley will be the batter, and then if necessary, Seager. Yeah, he's out. Our camera work was terrific. All right, 1 down. The winning run is 90 feet away, and Jeffress, who has really pitched a charmed life last night, now might not be able to get away. And let's see what Utley does. Craig Counsell out to talk to him. Ellis getting 5. That was a great bunt. 0-2. All right. Craig has spoken, and we'll see the results. Jeffress has an earned run average of about 2.6. 6 walks, 24 strikeouts. He has given up 2 home runs. Had to strike out Seager to get out of a bases loaded situation last night. Now a runner at third with 1 out, and Utley. And of course, it wouldn't surprise anybody if Utley tries to drag a bunt to first. And what Milwaukee is doing is take that thought away. They'll put him on. So Utley will take the intentional walk, and the batter will be Corey Seager. So Counsell has been so frustrated watching his ball club have a dozen hits, squander I don't know how many opportunities, leave them in every inning except the 5th. And now here they are in the bottom of the 10th with the winning run 90 feet away against them.
Shortstop, number 5, Corey.
So Corey Seager faced Jeffress last night with the bases loaded and struck out. Tonight Seager has struck out twice, hit into a double play, and they're going to walk him intentionally and take their chances on Turner. So they do not want Jeffress pitching to left-handed batters. So both Utley and Seager walk, and Turner, who has 2 home runs, popped up and struck out, coming up. Interesting. Right-handers have hit 175 against Jeffress, and left-handers 339. So that's certainly the big reason why they walk Utley and Seager. So Turner, 2 home runs, and now is asked to win the game. Meanwhile, Scooter Gennett asking for time. Ryan Braun is going to come in, and we're going to have a so-called 6-man infield. Well, they'll settle for 5 plus the catcher, so only 2 outfielders. What they want to do is switch. So a 5-man infield, and here is Justin Turner. We repeat it because we don't see it very often. The 5-man infield was originated by Branch Rickey to make a poor hitting pitcher swing away in a bunt situation. But he did not have the 5 men on the infield. He would have 1 man maybe 30 feet from home plate. That's what would deter the weak hitting pitcher from bunting. It would cause him to have to hit, and they would get out of the inning. Now the modern day 5-man infield, they're all infielders. They're all off the grass. 0-1 the count to Turner. Bases loaded, 1 out, 10th inning, 2-2. 0-2. Turner was a pinch hitter in last night's game, had a scoring fly ball in there tonight with 2 home runs. Waiting on deck, Adrian Gonzalez. Giants won today. Dodgers must win to remain 6.5 back, not 7.5. High foul out of play. And it's still 0-2. 44,998. Seeing a tough game. 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, and the Dodgers trying to win it now. 0-2 to Turner. Line drive base hit. So what a hero is Justin Turner, and the Dodgers win it 3-2. So Turner drives in all 3 runs tonight, and the Dodgers win it 3-2. The redhead is mussed up and thrilled. 3 runs, 8 hits, and no errors for the Dodgers. 2 runs, 12 hits, and 1 error for Milwaukee. The Brewers struck out 15 times tonight, so the Dodgers win it. Turner, of course, with 2 home runs, and now the game-winning single is the play and the player of the game. Tomorrow it'll be Chase Anderson and Mike Polsinger tomorrow night, and then Sunday the final game, and Kenta Maeda and Matt Garza. But the Dodgers win a thriller on a line drive single to left, 3-2. And the Dodgers in 1-run games are 5-5 at home and 9-13 for the year, and they trail the Giants by 6.5. Talk to you tomorrow. Till then, we wish you all a very pleasant good evening, everybody.